across to many organizations that has embarked enterprise architecture in the early days, like 7-10 years ago, and they told me that EA don't work, right? So of course it made me a curiosity why it didn't work. Then after that, I discovered that, oh, actually there are ways of the what I call it traditional EA that in fact many of them are still practicing that. Whereby now today I think we call it the context of the digital enterprise architecture, because now we are living in the digital world, so everything is digital, as well as the architecture also evolve, right? Because we are supported by the digital platform. We have the language notation like Archimate that it did not exist like 6-7 years ago. So Mac EA is a very, very cumbersome, right? In fact, enterprise architecture in the past adding more overhead, adding more resources, and actually slow down the whole progress of what we call it today transformation. So that's why this presentation is to clear the air, and I'm going to walk through you the so-called the history, as well as what are the differences between traditional EA, which is what I call it EA version 1.0, and today digital enterprise architecture, which is what I call it digital EA 2.0, okay, or EA 2.0. So let me just walk through, rewind about 9 years ago, right, in the 2013 or 8 years ago. So basically is that if you see the graph here, this graph not prepared by me, but actually prepared by Gartner, because Gartner analyzed the whole industry. And Gartner is one of the analysts that believe EA is the critical to drive for today a successful digital transformation. So Gartner plot this chart, and you can see that in 2012, about 10 years ago, EA hit the rock bottom. Basically, if in terms of the stock market, basically the market crashed, right? Whatever you invested in the blue chip, guarantee losing money. The same thing with architecture. But after that, it will turn up. Now the curve is going up, and somewhere in the 2013, the digital EA concept are being introduced. Because what happened is that at the time, the modern EA platform are coming up, and of course the Archimate was introduced back in the 2010. By 2013, they got Archimate version 1.1. So people get the feel, and then they can, in fact, the EA can create or give feedback much more informative than just doing a drawing or documentation or governance, right? So now we have a full dashboard. So this is a quick history on the where the digital EA concept was born, right? So it actually is about 7-8 years ago. Then after that, of course, in 2014, Gartner also portrayed this a very, very interesting perspective for the enterprise, right? Because typically we are always think about inside out. Inside out means we're developing a product, we drive the market, the marketing, sales, etc. from inside out, and we never care about outside in. That's why, today in the digital era is that if the company want to excel, they are not only good in the inside out, but they need to be able to look at or develop a marketing strategy and product, support, etc. from outside in. Outside means you are really putting your shoe in your client or partner shoe, to how you expect your client or your partner receive a service from your side, right? They call it outside in. And of course, they got outside out, where there will be a community or distribution of channel in the whole industry. Because today, I think the world is borderless because of the internet. Yeah, the e-commerce can go anywhere in the world. So to do this type of the model for enterprise, basically is that Gartner advocated in the 2014. If you can see the slide here, right, back in the 2014. So Gartner foresee that by 10 years, the enterprise will evolve into this type of model, and you need enterprise architecture to make it happen. Okay, so without enterprise architecture, can you make it happen? Well, maybe point to point. At the end, you will have a lot of the island, right? Could be, you call it digital island. But Gartner made a prediction for 10 years. But I think now with the COVID, the 2025 become today. I don't think we can wait, tell our boss, let's wait 4 more years, because Gartner said until 2025. Now we can live with what we have today. I think with the world that are now many lockdown in this part of the world, I think we can't survive to wait until 2025 to drive the entire digital transformation. And in 2016, it's very, very interesting, because at the time, I think, not sure whether you have already started your digital transformation discussion or initiative. In fact, many organizations also already failed in 2016, right? The big corporation, in fact, invested a lot of money in the driving digital transformation. But the issue is that they're still doing the same way as what they do in the typical IT project. But the only thing changed is the title of the project. They got the word digital somewhere. Okay, because they said what? If without the word digital, my CFO will not approve this project or this budget. That's why they got many so-called digital transformation actually didn't turn out well. And Gartner made a statement that enterprise architecture is the gateway if you want to have a successful digital transformation. Of course, the article is there and you can Google it. I will share the slide later. Then in the 2019, it's very interesting. This is where Gartner, the first time, made the EA predict, right? Gartner predict on enterprise architecture. So in the 2019, Gartner predict that an organization that have enterprise architecture, the team should behave or serve the senior management as internal management consultancy. I think management consultancy are very, very critical even today, right? Most of them are engaging all the big players, but now, with the EA team can act as a management consultancy that provides services to the board of directors. Because the EA team, by right, should know everything inside out about the organization, which I'm going to share inside my presentation this afternoon. And of course, the next one is in the 2020, last year. So Gartner made a prediction that if you have EA team fully functioning, your organization can be turned into an intelligent organization. So what do you mean by intelligent? Intelligent means if someone tell me that I'm intelligent, I know many things. You can ask me any topics, right? About life, about social thing, about politics, about product. I know. They call it intelligent. So an organization typically is that this is what, of course, the behind the story is that like you need big data and etc. You need to have the intelligence, some sort of information. So enterprise architecture can help to realize that. And interestingly, this year, 2021, Gartner made a prediction that the EA function or enterprise architecture team should allow organization to be decomposed, right? So composable means like now we can work from home, we can work from anywhere. Doesn't really mean we need to be meeting in the same room, then we can talk about business. We can meet anywhere. So, but of course now we can meet a certain thing, but our application, etc., all need to be able to move to the cloud, right? So we need to be able to drive the entire organization towards this composable organization. There's Gartner predict 2021 with this year. So let me now go through with you all about 7 ways that I have seen the differences between a people understanding or perception when we talk about EA back then, what I call it EA version 1, and today, what I call it digital EA or EA version 2. So let me just go through the first topics. EA is treated as an IT project in an organization. This is in the typical EA version 1.0. Yeah? EA is the project. Because I come across to many organizations when I ask them, have you done your EA? Oh yes, Aaron, I've done it 3 years ago. The project team already dissolved. I said, what? You tell me EA is a project? EA is the culture, is the journey. So they ended there. Okay. Anyone take over from there? No. The project already go live. So my EA is done. Wow, that's interesting. So of course, it's the time for me to educate and bring up the topic in the softer way, right? So that people can understand. So it's EA 1.0. In the EA 2.0, EA is a part of the organization culture. Because today we are in the era of the transformation and we need to be improving fast. We need to have a new capability. So we need to have some sort of culture to drive this transformation. So basically in the EA 2.0, everybody involved in the enterprise architecture initiative, and not only IT team, right? So basically the leadership, all the every department, every business unit, IT team, business team, all part of the way that the framework define the method. How are you going to execute the transformation with enterprise architecture? That's EA 2.0. And of course, it is the journey and it will never end. Yeah. And the way it does is that, of course, there will be someone looking after the team of the information, right? So information need to be connected. Information need to be processed, the data itself, so that it can become useful to the business. With that, then the organization can be intelligent, right? Basically, you are aware about thing about enterprises because you have that data. The next one, of course, about software or solution. That is very, very important because without that ability, you cannot realize thing that you promise. So enterprise architecture is really playing a critical role for the domain like a software and solution to make it happen. And also the key is flexibility here. Because business keeps changing, so we can't say to the business team, oh, sorry, to make these changes, it will take 2 months and certain million. No, we can't do that. It should be, the system should be able to adapt into the new so-called changes or requests from the business. Then infrastructure. Like now we are on the, most of us can work from home or etc. So we need to be able to have the adaptability. We need to be able to have the platform that can expand together with the business. That's why the importance of infrastructure architecture. Of course, the other domain is the business. Is also very, very important because we want to create a so-called efficiency. We want to create a workforce, digital workforce. We really need to have some sort of business architecture in place, because without that, I think architecture have deliver little value. So we need to have business architecture in place so that our information, our software solution, and infrastructure that require a technology investment can deliver ROI. And this is where the journey is portrayed in this TOGAF framework. So not sure how many of you are familiar with this. So basically, you can see the bubble here. The arrow is like a wheels. Wheels mean is moving, right? From left to right. So preliminary basically is the setup. Then after that, they got the process ABCD. The A is where you are developing the vision and the mission of your transformation. So you are looking at your strategy and how you're going to executing. Then after that, you look from that, you look at the entire your business landscape. You look at the gaps. Gaps mean things that I need to change from my current state to the target state, because the target state has been defined in the phase A. The phase A is about vision and the strategy. So this is where the so-called the power of enterprise architecture that they give, like TOGAF, they give a so-called a prescriptive method that you can follow. It is logical, right? And also it's very, very practical in the real life, because I myself have implemented quite a number of the large-scale enterprise architecture deployment, and this work. Yeah, because without the proper framework, everybody will be headless chicken. Everybody will have a lot of the politics, debate, arguing a certain method, which one better. But this somehow can unite the vision of the team itself. Yeah, so we understand the gap on the business. Then after that, from there, we can also understand the gap on the data, right? What so-called the missing data or the data that we need to integrate. Then we look at the application as well as the infrastructure. So the concept basically is quite straightforward. First, you understand the vision, the strategy, that way you want to move or bring organization to the next level. Okay, so typically you're targeting key stakeholders. Then from there, you look at the gaps, the changes required in the business, data, application, and technology. So once the gap is consolidated, then you can go into talking with the project team, right? If you have the PMO team, project management office, you discuss with them, how are you going to fix all this gap? So it becomes the so-called the initiative, transformation initiative, the project. Then from there, you can assign the resources and come up with the project plan. Then you can execute the project, be it in-house or you want it outsourced. Then from there, if there's any changes coming from the business or the technology that you need to incorporate into your enterprise. So this basically the cycle of how EA drive the continuous transformation journey, right? You can see from A, B, C, D, E, F, G hits, and then back to A. And the interesting part is the middle part, the requirement management. The requirement management actually in our normal practical life is like a sensor. Okay, so any changes to any domain, the sensor know exactly which one will be impacted, right? So for instance, like the human body, we got the brain. The brain is in the requirement management. So the brain control all the sensors, right? Even our feet, our toe, when we got somehow, you step on something, you feel pain, they know exactly from left feet or right feet. Right, this is what happened in the enterprise. So just this actually connecting to what Gartner just now mentioned, right? You want to have the intelligent organization. You want to make it composable. You need to have this type of a model. So this is on the framework part. Then in the actual execution is that where enterprise architecture office drive the entire so-called project management office. What projects to be executed or implemented. Then from there, you can see on the right-hand side where you can do a support, right? Like now, IT services or DevOps, ITIL, or there. And the bottom part is where you need to have a single source of truth, what I call it digital EA repository. Because without the digital EA repository, I think we cannot keep track all this type of relationship using Excel or PowerPoint or Word, but we need to have some sort of system to manage all the relationship. Actually, the digital enterprise architecture repository at the bottom is where just now in the TOGAF pictures is the requirement management, right? So it's the center, the brain that knows all the changes, in the entire enterprise architecture lifecycle, in the entire project lifecycle, and also in the IT service management lifecycle. And then the top part is where you unite and you connect and you do alignment between architecture, project, and also service level agreement. So the next one on the second topics on the differences between EA 1.0 and 2.0, EA deliverable appear in the form of static documentation that cannot be changed. Yeah. So this actually is very, very interesting. In the traditional EA, this is basically the analogy that I came up myself, because what happened is that I came across to many of the organization, right? They told me, Aaron, I heard you are doing EA. Can you help me to translate from the previous consultant that deliver me few boxes, okay, of all the architecture that they have done? In my heart, wow, how am I going to digest this? Hey, to me, as worth this one, if you want to you know, they're paying million, right, to get this documentation. It's very thick. It is just worth like 50 cents per kilo, right? If you're selling it into the recycle company, they ask you, this the most is like 50 kilo. So 50 kilo, I can give you $25. Hey, hello, I'm paying almost 4 million. So actually, to me, in today's context, it's useless, right? As soon as you printed, you sign off this documentation, you hand over, business change, no way. I have to change to 20 document. How am I going to do that, right? So the EA in the static documentation is basically today doesn't move anything. Yeah, this is EA 1.0. And then in the EA 2.0, actually EA are preserved or maintained in the live digital repository that can be updated easily. So basically, they have a digital repository that are targeting a different key stakeholders, different users, how they can access the information from the architecture to make a decision making, impact analysis, and then dependency, and etc. Yeah. So the structure of the digital EA repository itself basically got the framework, they have a domain and the 4 domain, business, data, application, technology, they have the library, they have the principle, they have the capability, they have governance, they have a policy, and they can also connect to the external sources, right? For instance, that you want to know the life cycle of the particular hardware, software, you can do that, so that you can maintain the up-to-date information instead of going into the end of life or end of support for particular product. So all these are very nicely configured and designed into the repository. And of course, you can also apply a framework, the framework like beyond the bank for the banking, right? And also the insurance or the telco. You can configure that into the so-called part of the governance in running the so-called your enterprise architecture governance. And this is the analogy about repository. I think you can see this on the left-hand side is the aircraft. So the aircraft itself can be modeled by the component. And they know exactly, even in this model, everything is wired. There isn't any screw or any part of the aircraft can just loosely like that, right? Anything that you loosen the screw, they know the impact or the risk that bring to the safety of the passenger. And of course, on the right-hand side is the iPad. And today, what I mean by the digital EA. So the iPad is a very, very useful, but somebody or some of the team in the organization need to come up the motherboard. So this is what I'm talking about, the enterprise architecture in terms of the diagram, in terms of the parameter attribute. So someone may need to draw this motherboard. Otherwise, the management can't see the thing they want to see. Okay, so this is something that quite critical today. The concept on the digital EA that has evolved from the traditional EA with the static documentation, with a lot of the diagram, and can't really function much, but now can bring a new capability to the organization. So the model, how it works is that you are modeling the real world enterprise on the left bottom there. Then from there, you extract it out into the meta model. So the meta model is also something that are quite discovery for me, because what happened is that prior in the 2012, about 10 years ago, when I first started implementing EA in the large scale, then I just discovered that meta model actually is very, very important. Then of course, we have developed a practice on how to configure this. And of course, interestingly today, in many enterprises today that I come across as well, they have the EA team. So first thing I ask, show me your meta model. This is also very interesting question that most of them can't really answer. Basically, they look at each other and they look at me and I look at them, right? So basically, without the meta model, we can't really so-called streamline our EA lifecycle or EA processes. Because what happened that when one day we have the so-called the EA platform, we need to configure the meta model into the platform itself. So in the layman term, if you are a bit confused now, the meta model actually is the database design, right? It's entity relationship diagram model of the enterprise. So instead of you come out your database for CRM, now it's your database for enterprise. So you need to look at the stakeholders, you need to look at your business layer, what are the function, department, role, processes. So you need to model it into the meta model. So that if any changes from one of the elements, you know exactly what's the impact to others. Then from there, once you populate in the repository, then at the bottom right is where you can assess and you can get the benefit of architecture of the today digital EA, whereby you can get the feedback on your transformation. You can get the feedback from your impact and also analysis. Basically, you can interact, right? You can basically become the intelligent source of any enterprise information that you have. So the model is left-hand side is where you have a physical enterprise. So of course, your enterprise got people, process, got all the capability. So the way the enterprise architecture, so-called digital EA being modeled is actually to model a digital enterprise map. What I would say today is something like a GPS. In the past, when when we go to the new place, the most we can just print the so-called street directory. Like in Singapore, I think many years ago they got the street directory. Anyway, in all over the world, if you go to travel to the new place, you might want to go to the bookshop and buy that map. But today you don't need that anymore. What you need, carrying the handphone. Then from the handphone, even you cannot speak the language, they can translate to English, and the handphone can navigate you anywhere in the world, even without interacting with the local people. They tell you whether the shop open or what's the nearest, and etc. So now actually the digital enterprise map or digital EA actually mimicking that the GPS handphone that you have, but for the enterprise, how you navigate. Remember just now my second slide about inside out, outside in, outside out. That's the model of new enterprise capability today. So the first layer actually is we are trying to understand about the motivation and the strategy layers of the key stakeholders. So basically, what makes our bosses cannot sleep at night? It's true, right? You think senior management is nice, or well, yeah, position is there, but actually they got so many worry, and their worry basically in the architecture they call it concerns, their driver. So architecture need to address that so that they can sleep well at night. Okay? So imagine that our job as an architect is that we want to make sure that our bosses don't need to eat the sleeping pill anymore, but talk to us, express their concern, their drivers, and etc., and we model the solution for them. Isn't it nice? So this is basically the method or the concept of the digital EA. Yeah? So once we model their motivation and the strategy, then we look the impact to the business. What are the so-called the business unit or department or function, processes, services that are impacted? We also want to know what are the products or contracts that we need to modify. Then from there, we look at the application. What are the application supporting that? Is that appropriate? Is there any gap that I need to change? Right, so that my boss's concern can be eliminated, right, and we deliver value. Likewise for the infrastructure, okay, would moving to the cloud help my organization to be more agile, as what my key stakeholder wanted to do. So we can understand this through the model, right? Because human is just, we can just talk, but if we show you something like this, they say, wow, this now I can understand the impact, right? And your bosses will definitely ask you, how much investment we are talking about here? I want to get this thing done as soon as possible. That's called transformation. And of course, not to forget about information and data, because that's very, very important. Right? From the business, then we know about whether we can use AI, we can use machine learning and robotic and etc. Because in contrast is that today many organizations, they straight away tell you, I want to adopt AI. What's your architecture? Don't have. I let someone else do for me. No, you can't do that. You need to understand how the whole map, then you know exactly where you can apply AI, where you can apply intelligent machine learning and etc. Yeah, or where you can apply the blockchain. In what scenario I can apply the blockchain, the trust. I need to have the architecture in place. Then from there we can have a smooth so-called transformation journey. So the bottom part is where we are running the so-called implementation or transformation. So the example of the meta model is something like this. So basically, this is where we can divide enterprise into the multiple layers, right? You see on the left side, they got the legend there. So there'll be motivation, strategy, business, application, technology, and implementation and migration. So we need to know what are the elements are impacted, what are the so-called information that I need to capture. Remember just now, a few slides back, I tell you the meta model, something like a database. In fact, all this information, the elements here is defined in Archimate. It's like database table. Inside there, you can store the information, the intelligence, the attributes. Then later, you can populate that into a dashboard, the relationship. Yeah. So what Gartner predicted is they have seen up to that level. So when I read that article, I can straightway relate. It's true. Huh? So if for those who who still exploring, it's still not too late, right? So you need to do it right for the very first time. That's called we need to adopt the right digital EA framework, approach, and method to implement all this that I'm talking about. So once you have done successful setup in terms of your digital EA repository, this is what the outcome of your so-called journey. You can tailor your architecture to any of the stakeholders in your organization, right? You can see here, head of strategy. They want to know whether the strategy has been propagated correctly, can be implemented. They can straight away ask which are the department or products or function or processes that support my strategy. I can answer that. Remember, Gartner said you need to support the intelligent organization, and I can answer that by a click of the button, right? If we thought that enterprise architecture meta model defined, you may respond to your head of strategy, boss, can you give me 2 weeks? They tell you that 2 weeks, I come up 10 strategy already by then. How am I going to answer that? Right? Definitely you create frustration to the organization. Then for the business architect, chief digital officer, same thing, right? I know exactly what are the so-called the digitalization effort now. I know which are the area, the gap that I need to further improve in terms of my digital maturity. Then for your customer as well, and you know that many complaints, etc., you can troubleshoot straight away by opening up just now the digital map. And you know exactly that, oh, this particular channel in the customer journey map is using hybrid. We have manual, we have a system. Why is that so? Oh, because the system cannot support this scenario. That's why we switch back to manual. And the manual part causing many complaints from our customer. And our EA should be able to respond that. Isn't it nice? Rather than say, oh, just blame it into the customer service team. They got new hire, 3 of them, and they don't do a good job. That's what typical human do, right? If you can't defend yourself, you blame it on other people. But with the EA, you can't blame that. I can open up, I can tell you straight, whoops, your customer journey, your customer process here, this is something not right. Why you assign to the different team, actually supposed to be another team. Yeah, I can straight away troubleshoot. And of course, your architects, you can define all your portfolio. You understand the dashboard, your solutioning as well. You can understand exactly where the technology impact itself to the product life cycle. For your investment, you want to know exactly what are we talking about? How much is the so-called value of this initiative? Okay, can you show me all the components? How much will the cost? And also talking about risk, right? You're talking here now about cybersecurity risk. Can I isolate particular function or processes because being exposed? So with the enterprise architecture, you can isolate quickly. If without the EA, what do? Just switch off everything, right? You go to the power switch, you switch off everything. You're safe. You are basically now disconnected from the internet, but you can't. Your business need to run. So you can see here, they got many aspects that enterprise architecture digital EA today can address, right? Whereby traditional EA, well, they can't address all this. It's just impossible for them because they're typically still in the static and typically still IT focused. Then the third one is on the coverage, right? The coverage typically in the traditional EA, they only focus on the IT department. It's very difficult for the IT department to go outside the IT department. Okay, because they're only comfortable with the technology. They every day they speak XML, right? When they drink the water, also using HTTP or whatever. But it's just a joke. But IT people need to basically reach out, not only focusing on the IT department. This EA 1.0 typically focusing a lot in the IT department. Whereby in the EA 2.0, basically is that everybody, every employees, entire organization, sales, marketing, finance, operation, human resource, admin, strategy, and also IT itself. Not only IT team alone, right? Because I've come across that we implemented the so-called enterprise architecture for hospital. Even the nurses also getting involved in the defining the business architecture. The pharmacy also getting involved. not only the IT team. Yeah, so it's very interesting, the contrast between the traditional EA and the digital EA. So in the digital EA, the way that is touching everybody because they drive from the strategy, right? And how that cascade down into the business and technology, as well as they provide the feedback, which is what I call it digitally connected enterprise model. Because actually, even in our design, we always think like only IT is an island. Actually, our department also is an island, right? If someone come to you and I say, can you share that information that I heard about that, your information, your department has, you know what's the typical answer to me? Sorry, Aaron, even your boss also don't have access to this data. Forget about you. Wow, how am I going to drive my transformation? We are in the same company, right? I'm carrying the same name tag. I'm the same company. Email address is the same domain, and you tell me I don't have access. So how can I transform? So that's why now the organization are being forced to share the knowledge, right? And they can see the impact directly between strategy, business, information, application, and infrastructure. Yeah, from any direction. From there, then we can run the transformation and the realization so-called journey. Okay, by running multiple projects. So behind the scene, actually there are integration between business strategy and IT strategy. That's very, very important. Then from there, we analyze in terms of the architecture. What are the gaps exist in the business, information, application, and technology, and how we can fill the gap. So by filling the gap, actually, we are executing the digital transformation at the bottom layer. So the model basically is where the EA itself can perform the so-called like command and control, right? If you understand about the war, command and control is where you receive the instruction. It's basically the center of the activity. Okay, the focus of all the strategy and activity within the enterprise, because enterprise architecture connect everything from the strategic planning, being in business, ICT, digital, or portfolio, risk, and also the technology management. The next one is on the EA 1.0, typically focus on the framework and the technology. Yeah, so this is true, but the framework and the technology typically are connected. So if you are getting the so-called information from particular vendor, that will be your framework and technology. Okay, it's not enough to have the breadth. They have the depth, but not lacking the breadth. Okay, so in the EA 2.0, what happened is that the EA cover holistically between framework, technology, skill set, and notation. So they expanded the framework technology to also include skill and the notational language. So the analogy to me is like this orchestra. Okay, when you want to play the orchestra like this, you need to have so-called the conductor. You need to have so-called the people to have the skill set, right? The right instrument, and also they read the same notes, right? On the left bottom there. Did you see that? I know the participant in this webinar today, they are, I think, almost equally from Hong Kong, right? Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore. Now I want to ask you, did anyone know about music? Did you use the same notes? I will bet it is, right? Anywhere in the world. But now in our lingo of enterprise, are you using the same notation? The answer is unlikely. I have my own notation, you have my own notation, and etc. Right? Everyone can't really talk. So we need to unify them. This is what I call it a framework. Technology, skill, and notational language need to be unified like the orchestra. So the concept, basically, you need to have the proper framework. I think just now I highlighted about the important on the like adopting the right framework like TOGAF 9.2. Then, of course, you need to get the right platform for architecture tool and digital repository as a single source of truth. Then you also need to have the right skill set for architects to perform the role, right? You want to join the orchestra, you really need to have a so-called prerequisite. You need not only know about music, but you know also the orchestra role and etc. Okay, and of course you need to be able to read the notation, like the musical note. We call it here Archimate, right? So I don't know how many of you heard about Archimate. So that is actually the unified notational language for enterprise architecture, Archimate 3.1. So the analogy like driving a car is this, right? So in terms of the framework, actually it's all about the rules, the traffic rules, right? They call it a framework. So the traffic rules anywhere in the world is quite similar, except left-hand drive and right-hand drive. I think that's the only thing you are left. You drive on the left-hand side or you drive on the right-hand side when you take over, right? Besides that, I think it's quite similar. Then, of course, the car is what we call it repository, right? Basically, got the engine, got the CC. They can connect the whole thing, right? They can run, they can pump petrol, and they can drive, yeah, from one point to another one. Then of course there will be next one is the skill set, right? So you have the skill set as well as the meta model. The meta model is the like speedometer, your GPS, your temperature is all standard. So almost in any car, when you sit in, then you know that this is the water temperature, this is the fuel, and etc. So that's what happened. The function on the the notational model like Archimedes. Then of course the framework, I think mentioned about TOGAF. And then when you talk about skill set, actually they have like ITABOK, right? I think it's a body of knowledge. Basically, it's about sharpening the individual skill of architects. And of course, the notation is Archimedes, and we need also to have a proper EA tools and repository to run our digital EA, because we cannot run this manually by Excel spreadsheet or PowerPoint or Word. So this is an example on the how the business can be modeled, right? So this is a particular insurance, they got the process that they go through. So we understand here. So if any point in time people complain that when they do the educating here, right? And I think got some problem, and we can find out what happened. Let's open up our application here. Oh, no wonder the educating actually is by manual process. Then we know what goes wrong, right? Then you can also understand what are the infrastructure impacted. This is just a small sample. You can either do this drawing, or you can do, of course, in impact analysis with all the graphical, right? In the today modern platform. Then this is the journey about to drive the transformation, where you typically start from the left top corner. This is like a monopoly, right? So once you understand the first iteration, the second and third iteration will be quite fast, right? You drive the motivation, you define the strategy, then from there you understand the impact to the business, the impact to the application, the impact to the technology, as well as to the information. Then from there you can realize by running multiple projects. And of course, at the left bottom there is where you can run so-called maturity assessment, because you want to make sure that you are growing in terms of maturity, you are better than last year or better than yesterday. Okay, so these are the typical so-called journey map on the how EA can be used to drive the transformation. The next one is on the EA serve as one of the components in the strategic IT plan documentation. These also are very, very real today. In many organizations is that, the EA itself actually don't really play a critical role, because what happened is that they are far away from the senior management. They actually at the so-called is separated, right? They are not part of the so-called senior management to provide valuable insight or advice, right? So if this is what happened, the struggle of the EA version 1.0, right? They are just mentioned somewhere, but they don't really functioning. Whereby in the so-called EA 2.0 is where the EA itself actually used to drive the transformation by realizing the strategy. So instead of the strategy go to the transformation, you basically going through so-called the architecture. You basically understand the strategy, what's the impact, right, in terms of the business, data, application, and technology, and how the gap itself can be filled through the transformation. So instead of from 1 to 3, you can go 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, so this is basically the model of digital EA. Then this is what actually defined in the TOGAF. So what are the input to the architecture? The first is that on the left-hand side, you can see business vision, goal, driver, strategy, stock, motivation is the input, right? These are very, very critical for architecture. Then the output is basically they're going to introduce a new enterprise capability and drive the business growth, right? So of course, by releasing new IT system that are relevant and can support the business. So typically the way it works is that they define the capability framework. Then from there, they look at the method and understand the guideline and the technique that need to be customized. Then of course, look at the reference model and also the repository, how you're going to configure that. Once that one is ready, then you are ready to approach the business, understand what are the capability required. And you can also model how the realization of the business vision. Okay, remember in the TOGAF, they got vision, they got the business, etc. So this is where the first part and the left top corner there. Then after that, of course, you get the information more from the business in terms of the understanding the entire business landscape, right? And what's the impact to the technology, data, and infrastructure. Then on the top corner on the right hand side there is where you drive the KPI. You want to show value, right? How the capability has been improved. That's why you do the maturity assessment and etc. Then the middle part is where you deliver a solution through a PMO, project management office. But this time around, the project is really have a foundation, the architecture as the governance to drive a successful project. So not anyhow you just gut feel, capture the requirement, functional spec, and then do simple design and you write the software. No, you can't do that. So everything is mapped nicely and all are connected in the connected model. Yeah, and the bottom part, right hand side, is where you got any changes. Yeah, so these are the typical life cycle on the how the EA works. So this is another example on the digital strategy, whereby you can model the strategy actually at the bottom corner here, right? Where you can have the strategy, course of action, and in this context is that you want to be so-called very effective, and you want to be the world best airport, right? What are so-called the strategy that you need to have, and what are the outcome required? So basically, you need to have timely and accurate data for decision-making process. You need to have a process streamline, and you need to be supported by the capability, because without that, you can't really drive your strategy. And of course, the outcome itself, it will drive the goals, right? The goal to be efficient airport, improve passenger satisfaction. At the end, of course, you want to improve air traffic and become the world best airport. By being the world best airport, then you can also eliminate the passenger choosing other airport for transit, or airline operator choosing other lower cost airport. Okay? So this is just a model example on the digital strategy modeling. The next one, of course, on the context of the transformation and the strategy. So typically, the enterprise architecture itself, they have the domain itself, data, business, application, and technology. And of course, not to forget about the security and also the integration architecture itself. That is very, very important, because remember just now the model of the inside out, outside in, and outside out, right? So anything need to be integrated together. And from there, of course, we can so-called drive the digital transformation framework and the strategy. And of course, we can also deliver a solution, because architecture without the solution, we still haven't realized the value. That's why we need to have a solution architecture. And with that, we can also realize through the so-called PMO, project management office. Yeah, so this is the model of how the enterprise architecture itself turn into a solution, what TOGAF calls solution building block, and after that, drive and realize the transformation. So the model will be something like this. At the bottom there, you can see is where the many transition. So they got transition 1, transition 2, transition 3 of the project, because it is a journey, right? So it will never end. So there will be always starting somewhere and continues the journey. And at the top one is where you also have a journey that you are going to become a better enterprise tomorrow, better than today. Okay, so we're identifying the gaps and how we can fill up the gaps. So the middle part is where the enterprise architecture practice kicks in, right? So basically, it's looking at the business fit, application fit, technology fit, capability fit, and also digital transformation fit. That is very, very important, because when you run the transformation, you really need to have a cohesive and holistic view of the entire enterprise. You cannot just see on the particular project, but you need to see it end to end. So of course, EA should be an integral part of a strategic executive committee. So instead, EA is separated, but EA actually is part of senior management leadership, because EA team can provide a management consultancy, can turn organization to be intelligent, and you can compose the organization and decompose it, right? So you need to be able to have a close interaction with the senior executive. Okay, that's the mandate for a successful architect. Of course, before you can achieve that, you need to show value. That's why just now, up to today's slide 48, I line up about what are the things that you need to do to get in there, right? You cannot just overnight, tomorrow, boss, sorry, I heard from Aaron that I need to sit in the board of director. Your board of director will tell you get lost. Okay, we need to show the value. We need to show how EA itself can help an organization to drive the transformation. Then you can earn the seat, right? I would say the word earning the seat rather than you demand the seat, right? You can earn it and people give you that place. So this way, the strategy itself, right, can be between business and ICT, and how that connect to the architecture, to the design, and to the operation. So this is typically the layer on the typical organization. So of course, many in the early days of architecture, they are doing the business architecture, data architecture, application, and the technology in infrastructure. And typically, these are also still running in a little bit of silo. Okay, whereby today in the digital EA is that need to be they need to be integrated, they need to be united, right? Basically, you need to have a digitally connected model for all this. And of course, with that can support the seamless integration with the PMO and ITSM. So this is where I think very, very critical for enterprise architecture to drive the transformation in this manner. Yeah. So the next one is on the EA project lack of the standard ROI, right? In the traditional EA 1.0. This is a typical scenario. Okay, I think you listen on Mr. Tech and Mr. Beast. Basically, is that when Mr. Tech present the model, Mr. Beast straight away disappointed. Wow, I'm spending 20 million. I thought I'm going to have the mansion, right? The mansion super house, but you give me just a simple house. So that is something that quite striking, right? To so-called manage the expectation that the Mr. Tech asking for money, and Mr. Beat said, "Oh, that money, I don't know, going to fly to the east or west, depending on the wind, right?" Typically, always said, "I'm going to cut the IT budget because why? I don't see any value, and the money I don't know go to where. I invested a lot of money." Okay, so this is the challenge in the typical EA, traditional EA, and then in the today digital EA. Basically, is that EA can be measured by the so-called maturity assessment. Okay, so we can use a dimension factors to analyze our effectiveness, our achievement, and our capability. Yeah, so we can so-called measure our success, right? We know that before and after because we got transition 1, transition 2. So we should be able to measure and show the so-called measurable ROI. Right, to whoever invested in our project, to the key stakeholders. So we can show about the path, right, the journey. Say this month is July 2021. What you have started EA, you model the organization, set up the repository, etc. Then after that, in 6 months from now, perhaps you do a so-called maturity level. You achieve 2.5 because you have all the necessary setup component for architecture to function. Then of course, with that, by end of next year, you can achieve level 3.0, whereby you can onboard the entire IT team and also starting engaging a business team very, very closely to do alignment. Okay, so in the same month as well, you can achieve maturity 3.5, right? Whereby you can also do the so-called onboarding the business team. Yeah, and of course you can also achieve the next level. So the journey is continued, okay, until you sustain maybe at the level 3.5 to 4. That will be already quite healthy. Yeah. So what does EA matter for the most, or for the matter most for the business? Because this is the statement: business cannot survive without IT, and IT has no place without business. So this is something is true today, right? So we have no choice. If you want to deliver value, we need to understand the business if you are from IT perspective. And of course, today business people also need to know about the technology because we are living today in the digital era. Okay, so the primary duty of architect is to translate business requirement into the technical requirement and also provide full traceability. That's very, very important. If someone asks me why that happened, I can show it to them. I can show them so-called, I can give them the historical route that I went through, right? And of course, not only architect must speak the business language, but also to have in-depth understanding on the business vision and overall strategy. That's also very, very important. And as an enterprise architect, I think we need to be a trusted advisor and leader, and we are expected to navigate and manage complex business situations. So this is basically the mandate for all of us today. We cannot run away for the fact that our business keeps changing, so I think we don't do architecture. The more you are in the dynamic environment, the more you need the architecture. Because why? I can respond fast. If your business never change, let me tell you straight, you don't do EA. Never change what? Why you need to have architecture? For the last 30 years, never change what? Your job is still the same. Don't do architecture. Just do without architecture. I will approve it. But if your business keeps changing, you cannot manage the expectation. That's why you need to invest in the right architecture to manage the change. Yeah. So this is where you have the proper framework, proper skill set, notation, and also the proper repository. You can always have the new capability. You can show value about your technology investment. So my last point about 7 ways on the EA has evolved on the EA version 1.0. EA engagement is mostly centered around consulting services with limited transfer of knowledge. Again, I have come across to many organizations that have engaged a consulting company to do EA, right? But it is quite sad because for the fact is that many consulting out there, they want the client to be so-called, I wouldn't want to use the word stupid, but it's really put the client in the dark, right? Because as a consultant, you cannot teach your secret recipe to the client, because if you do that, your client will not engage you anymore, because they say, what, I know everything, what? Why should I engage him so expensive? I do it myself. So they always put you in the dark, right? So this is, they don't do transfer of knowledge. This is the limitation on the so-called EA services out there. I come across to so many of them, right? Because after that, they don't know what to do. That's why they all come to me. And I said, wow, your consultant never teach you this? No, they don't teach me. Then how are you going to continue? Engage them back. Oh, you can't. You need to be able to run yourself, right? So in the EA 2.0 is that you need to be able to receive a transfer of knowledge. And if you're a consultant or consulting company, you need to be sacrificially hand over all your practice to your client so that they can continue the transformation. Remember, EA 2.0 is the journey, is the culture. How can you don't share the culture? Then how can people adapt the culture then? If you don't share, right? So basically the concept is that you need to do a transfer of knowledge, skill transfer. You need to do training, right? You need to have a mandatory knowledge, so-called competency development, right? And then you also need to do a coaching session beside the consulting and also change management. So this is where the EA itself can, the engagement model should be dynamic to drive the outer layers, right? About the entire transformation. I think the middle part, you understand all the architect, right? So they got the mandate, they got the component, they got the outcome they need to deliver. And you need to be able to think, change, review, and use your architecture, right? So you can see the outer layer, all the transformation, the customer journey, skill set, information, operating model, digital, and also thought leadership. That are very, very key today if you go to any board director meeting, they are talking about this, right? But they still haven't go into the architecture yet. So they're just talking about this project, that project. Hopefully the project can keep us transform. Well, what is the difference what you do today than 10 years ago? Same IT project. The only difference today got the title, but it doesn't work that way, right? You need to understand the whole aspect, the whole dependency. Remember the concept of the inside out, outside in, outside out. What's the impact? What are the so-called your entire model? So you transform in the model first. That's why we have the concept of digital EA. So they got the enterprise map for us to do transformation. Like before you drive, you can just navigate the GPS, right? Your GPS will tell you can straight away, oh, I go to this highway, that highway, I exit it. So I get the feel already before I drive. So now, can you portray that? Only the architecture can give that pictures to the so-called key stakeholders. Actually, in my experience, I've come across presenting this to the CEO, then they said, wow, for the very first time, you guys can read my mind. This is exactly what I want to see. Rather than you tell me, I have to go to this project, can you approve 10 million? Scary, isn't it? If you are in the CEO position, you don't think you want to approve that, right? So that's what happened, that the architecture give a so-called clarity, right? Manage the expectation, and you can see what other people see, right? And other people see what you see as well. Yeah, so this is the concept of the EA. So with that, I think we can have a so-called promote a digital culture. Yeah, this is the outcome. Then we can understand the needs and the wants of the business people. That's very, very important. And of course, your IT team can think technical, but speak and write business. This is $1 million mandate. Yeah? Many IT people can't even, they can think technical, but they also speak technical. They can't speak business. Suddenly their mouth got stitched, they cannot open the tongue. The tongue suddenly frozen when they meet the business people. They can only talk XML, TCP, IP. Well, by now the mandate is that you need to speak and write business. Yeah? Then of course you need to have the right skill set, and you need to show the ROI for your IT project. And you also need to have some sort of the principle. Your IT department must generate profit, right? Well, you need to spend. Yes, I'm spending on data center, I'm spending on the server, but I help the business to generate more money. That's what you must have in mind. That's what I believe only enterprise architecture can help you that. The rest, well, I just system for life. Then the rest, I don't care. I move on to the next project. And the rest is by another team, maintenance team will look after. That doesn't work that way, right? We need to show our value, our presence in the organization.